Hello and welcome. In this video, I'll be teaching you how to create a translation type of tessellation, tessellate the entire surface vertically and horizontally, and color using an alternating pattern. Hello and welcome to this tessellation design video. For those of you that are new to Windows 7, there's going to be some difficult parts, but we're going to walk you through each of those difficult parts so that you will be successful. For those of you that are used to Windows 7 Paint program, you're going to be able to hopefully expand your creativity and your ability to work with tessellations using this really much more powerful application than the XP version of Windows Paint. So let's get started. If you watch my mouse, we're going to go down here to this is the Start menu. And we're going to click on that, left click. And if you don't see the Paint program anywhere in here, there's a couple ways to do this. Right here, if you look where it says Search Programs and Files, if you just type in P-A-I-N-T, Paint, you can see at the top it brings up the program Paint, and that's the program we're going to be working with. So just left click on that if you would. Alright, now this, depending on how big your screen size is, this canvas could be long and thin, kind of like mine is, or it could be a little bit more rectangular. For our purposes, as we work with tessellations, we don't need a huge screen. So what we're going to do is just kind of bring, if you see what I did here, I grabbed this with my left mouse click. I'm just going to bring this in because we don't need a huge amount at this point. Now here we have our toolbars. What you can do if you want to minimize this to make some more screen room, what I like to do is come up here to this little button, left click on it, and then click on this minimize the ribbon. It minimizes the ribbon. That'll give you a little more room to work on your tessellations. And so that's what I would recommend. And you want kind of more of a square canvas at this point, so that anytime you click on Home now, you can gain access to all your tools and your colors, etc. Now if we could click on View, some of you have this clicked off and so you can't see the rulers. What we want to make sure is that we can see those rulers. So go ahead and put rulers in place, and now you should be able to see this ruler and this ruler on the left. Okay, good. And you can play around with these buttons, but for now what we're going to do is move on and begin designing our first tessellation. Now you should know something about designing tessellations already. If you don't, we're going to start from the beginning and we're going to look at square one, so to speak. Alright, so the first thing we want to do is work with a square. Alright, so we're going to grab this rectangle tool, and to keep it a square, what I'm going to do, and I'm actually going to work in the middle here of my page. To keep it as a square, I'm going to hit the Shift key. Hold the Shift key, left click, and drag. Now you can see it's quite thick. It's actually, this is actually a little bit thicker than we need it. Yours may be thinner, yours may be thicker, but that's fine. What I'm going to do is click on Home, and then as I scroll down these different line thicknesses, you'll see it changes from a 1 pixel to a 2 pixel to a 3 pixel to a 4 pixel. So we're going to pick or select the 2 pixel width. Now, just so that this is a little bit easier, now that I've shown you how I like to work, I'm going to actually go back to this button, click on Minimize again so that we can see all these options. I think that'll make it easier as we go. Now also you can see as I move my cursor out here, it becomes a drawing tool. As I move it within the rectangle, or in this case a square, I can actually move it around. What I'm going to want to do is move this around so that I have room on the top, room on the left, room on the right, and on the bottom, because we're going to be manipulating this square. Now I'm going to see that this square is right now, it is selected. Okay, and what I want to do to deselect that is just to click anywhere else. And you can see it's deselected now. Now at this point, what I'm going to do is take my straight line tool, which is here, and this will draw straight lines. Okay, and if you move it around, you'll see you can draw in any direction. Now watch the difference. When I hold the shift key, it actually keeps it in 45-degree increments all the way around. That's something to pay attention to. If you ever want to draw straight 90-degree or 45-degree angles, that's something good to know. But for our purposes here, we're just going to use it like this. Now you'll notice another thing, that when I let go of the line, it turns into a selection, which means I can actually lengthen it or shorten it. So these are some powerful new options in the drawing in Windows 7 Paint. But I'm going to delete that for now because I don't really need it. So with the line tool, straight line tool selected, I'm going to simply start at this corner and I'm going to drag in. And I'm going to drag in somewhere approximately here. Now again, you can move this as you need to. So if you want to move it, you certainly can. Make it longer, make it shorter. Alright, I'm going to bring mine into about there, and then I'm going to have to left click somewhere off of that line to begin a new line. So I left click and then I come back, and I'm going to come in something like this. Now you'll notice there's a slight bit of a gap here, so I'm actually going to click on the up tool, the up button arrow on my keyboard, just to move that line up a little bit. Then I can click off so that it's touching. We want to make sure that this line touches this line and closes it off. Now I'm going to start my next line, and I'll come in something like this, move off and click. Then I start at the beginning or the end of that line and bring it back off the corner. Now remember, when you're designing tessellations, you need to make sure it comes in this corner, goes in, moves around, stays within the shape, and then comes off of this bottom corner. That should make sure you'll have a quality tessellation. Alright, the next thing we're going to do is take the curved line tool. Alright, the curved line tool is a special tool because it gives you, when you've drawn your straight line, you can actually, gives you the option to actually bend it and curve it. So I've left clicked the second time and I'm bending and curving it. Now you get to do this 2 times. So let's say I curve it here the first time. I let go of my mouse, then I left click again and I can bend it down to get this really pretty S curve. Or I can reshape it a little to get a nice rounded curve, arced curve we call that. But either way, what you're going to do is simply delete that for now. But you're going to have 2 chances to use that part of the tool. So I'm going to take and drag somewhere into my shape here. So let's say I wanted this to be a little more round. I might bring it up like this and then let go, and then again click my left mouse button, and I could make it more like this, a little narrower, or I could make it more full. Either way, I think I'm going to go something like that, just a quick little arc shape. And again, you could move it if you wanted to. So I left click off of it. Then I'm going to start another line. So I'm going to bring it from here into the corner where it needs to end, because you'll remember the next line we draw needs to go from this corner into the shape and off of this corner. So I'm going to drag this up. Now I could drag it lower. You can't do something like this because it would produce an extra shape we don't need. But I can go anywhere out here or bend it up and in, something like this. I think I'm going to actually just kind of bring it down like this a little bit. And then if I don't want it to move from there, I keep my mouse in place and just left click again until I see that it's been selected. Then I can click off. So there is the beginnings of our tessellation. Again, we moved from this top left corner into the shape and off the bottom left corner. We moved from the top left corner into the shape and off the top right corner. Now that's the beginning stage. Next, we're going to use the selection tool. So I'm going to click on select and look at my options. I'm going to use a rectangular selection, but before we do that, I want you to click on this. It's a transparent selection. If you don't have that selected, you'll see what happens. I'll show you what happens. If I were to select this and hit Control C to copy, Control V to paste, and I move this over, you notice it takes up and blocks all of the background. And so we don't want to use that. So I'm going to, while it's still selected, I'm going to delete that. So again, to my selection tool, click on Transparent, then hit Select again and make sure you have Rectangle Selection picked or selected. Okay, so rectangular selection and transparent selection should be check marked. Then you can move safely onto the screen, and what we need to do is select this portion. Alright, so I'm going to start here, and I'm actually going to come out to the farthest part so I can select the whole thing, and I'm going to go down a little ways so that I have the entire portion that I drew, this whole shape right here. I could do this a couple ways. I can use keyboard shortcuts, or you can see this, just push copy. So if I hit copy and then paste, it gives me this selected piece. Now you'll notice since we selected transparent, now we can actually see through it and we can do what we need to. Since we need to move this across, we're simply going to take it, and I'm holding down my left click button, and I'm going to place it perfectly aligned with this side, just like that, so that this corner is connected and this top corner is connected. Then I left click off of that, and we're going to do the same with this line that we drew. We need to take this, copy it, and place it down here at the bottom. So again, my selection tool is still selected, so I'm going to select and drag over the area that I want, copy, paste, and simply take it and move it to the bottom. Now this is called a translation tessellation because this shape translates across to this side. This shape translates down to this side. And so the idea is that the whole tessellating shape that we've now created will actually move from left to right and from top to bottom. So the next thing we need to do is zoom in so that we can really erase all the parts that we don't need on this. And so here's what we're going to do. We're going to move to this tool right here called the zoom tool. And you'll notice it gives me this rectangle as I move it around the screen. What I want to do is place it right here in the middle so that it brings me very close. Now I'm not going to click it again. I'm actually going to come up and change now to the eraser tool. And I want to come down here, and you'll notice we're a little bit off to the right. I'm more comfortable working with it centered. So I'm actually going to move this bar at the bottom so that I'm more centered. And we can also change the size. When we have our eraser tool selected, we can change the size of the eraser from very thick to very thin depending on where you need to get. So I'm going to keep it pretty thick for now. And I'm going to carefully come in, left click, and drag, and I have to be very precise here. Left click and drag and try to erase the lines. Now I'm going to give you a couple tips. The first tip is I always get close to the line of my tessellation shape before I click and pull away. That helps me ensure that I don't chop into the actual shape that I need. Now what we can do is if I do chop into it, let's say I wipe through my shape, which will destroy my tessellating shape, what I can do is hit Control, hold Control, and hit the letter Z. That will undo the move I just made. Now just as an aside, as I'm erasing this, Control Z used to only remember your last 3 moves. If you're using XP, you would only be able to make 3 mistakes, and it would only remember your last 3 moves. It could only undo the last 3 things that you did, the last 3 actions that you took. The nice thing about Windows 7 Paint program is that it actually will erase several of the last things that I do. So for instance, I could hit Control Z, Control Z, Control Z, and you can start to see I'm putting back all the things that I've done. Alright, I'm going to hit Control Y, Control Y, Control Y, Control Y to redo all those erasers that I made because I don't want those erasings. I don't want those lines, so I'm going to get rid of those. Alright, so this shape is starting to turn out pretty neat. I think we could do some cool things with this. And of course, this is where the creative part comes in. After we erase, we're going to get creative with this and try to make it really something recognizable like MC Escher did with his tessellations. Now before we get too far, we want to inspect our lines to make sure they're clean and crisp and that there are no gaps. If you have a little gap like this, that is going to allow the paint to flow through, so we can't use that. So hit Control Z, put that back. And so now we have our tessellating shape, and I'm going to clean this up a little bit up here as well. And let's go up in here. Okay, now at this point what we're going to do is give ourselves some options. We don't want to be limited in our options. Of course, this shape will tessellate at this point. We could actually take it. If I zoom back out, I can actually come right down here and hit negative. It'll go to 100%. I can zoom out, and then if I click on the selection tool and just move it over to illustrate my point, hit copy, hit paste, I'll get another exact duplicate. And so since we've done this correctly, it will fit perfectly here to tessellate this direction, but it'll also fit perfectly here to tessellate up and down. And that's what we want. Now, while we still have this, I'm going to actually take and spread these out because I want to give myself some different options, as I said earlier. So I'm going to duplicate another one by clicking paste, and I'm going to take about 4 of these. So I'm going to go back and select this just so I can move it. Oh, I don't think I could do that yet. Hold on, Control Z to get rid of this guy. I'm going to move this guy out of the way, put him up here in the corner, and I'm going to spread these out so that I have room to work with each one of these individually. I'm just going to spread these around. Paste 2 more. I'm going to put 1 down here and paste again, and I'll have a 4th copy. So now I have 4 copies. I'm going to give you 4 options to work with. So on this one that's selected, what we're going to do is we're going to rotate it. We'll just click this first one, rotate to the right 90 degrees. I rotate it to the right, and all of a sudden it looks much different than this shape, although it still will tessellate both up and down and right to left, horizontally and vertically. But this might be something I can use as a different sort of animal, or I may see something new that I didn't see in this shape. So again, this is creating options for us. Another thing we can do, select this one. I want to keep them away from each other so you can actually select them and move them around. If I click on rotate left 90 degrees, let's see what happens there. Rotate to the left. We lost some of it. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to hit Control Z. That rotate left, actually what that did is started to interfere with the space on this piece right here, on this one. So what I'm going to have to do is actually move this guy. In fact, why don't we take our canvas now and move it wider so we have a little more room to work. You may be able to move it to the right. Some of you may have taller computers and you can move it down, or you can always minimize this part of the screen. But for now I'm going to keep it open, and I'm just going to move this upper person. Well, let's see if I can do this right. Select from here to here. I'm going to move him over, and then if I select that, let's see what happens here if I rotate left. Oh, it still chops off some of them. I'm not sure why that happened. So I guess we won't be able to do that. We're not going to rotate left. Okay, but what we will do is we'll take and maybe we can rotate 180 degrees. Ooh, Control Z. So we have to select the guy first, and then let's try rotate 180 and see what happens there. Yeah, so there's another option that we have. So you can see that this shape is the same as this shape, except it's flipped over 180 degrees. And this shape is the same as this shape, except it's 90 degrees. Now this shape we have not adjusted yet, so let's go ahead and adjust that one. And what we can do with this one is, let's try to flip vertical, see if it's any different. Okay, so it's a little bit different. So you can play around with those things as long as you have 4 different variations, these are called, of the same shape. So we've got this variant, this variant, this variant, and this variant. Okay, basically this one is the same as this except pointing in this direction. Alright, so we may see 2 different things depending on how we point those. So next, the trick is going to be to come in and try to decorate these. So as we do this, you'll want to zoom in on the one that you're working on. So let's take this one at first, and we'll zoom in on this guy. Click on the zoom tool, and we're going to come right in and zoom in on him. And then we're going to use these tools, the straight line, the curved line, the circle, to perhaps decorate it and to turn it into something. Now, if you don't see anything immediately that you could turn this into, what I like to do is use this circle tool and try to create an eyeball. Look for a place that I think an eye would look appropriate. Oftentimes that's the best way to start, is just to kind of look around, figure out where you think an eyeball would fit, and start from there. So I could put it over here, which would make it look like one kind of creature, but over here it would make it look like another. So I'm going to draw a circle right here. I'm going to click. I'm going to go up here to my brushes. I'm going to select the what's called the paint tool, the airbrush tool, or spray can. I'm going to spray an eyeball into that circle so I can tell which direction the guy's looking. Maybe put a nostril in here. Then I'm going to take my curved line tool and look for places where I might put some fins. And then drag up. You can see I'm left clicking. Whenever it's red lines like that, you can see I've clicked. And I'm going to left click again, bend it. Left click again to leave it in place. Left click, drag, left click and bend to leave my line in place. Left click and bend to leave my line in place. And I click and drag another tool. Okay, and then maybe at the top here, I use the curved line again. And bend that up. Left click. Come up here, give it a slight bend. Left click. Alright, just to kind of make it interesting. And then maybe I take my straight line tool and give it some more decoration here. I don't know, you can be creative with these things. So anyway, that might look like a fish, and you know, it kind of needs a mouth. There's the nose. Maybe it needs a mouth, so maybe I take curve line tool, put it here. Yeah, so there we go. There's our first one. So again, that's just playing around with it like a fish. Let's go over here and we'll just take this bar and move it over. Now, what do I see here? Well, again, what I like to do is start with a circle and put a circle where there might be an eye. Now I kind of take a look. Now there's a couple ways I could go with this. And you might see something that I don't. I see something here. I see something here. I'm going to, instead of using the circle tool, what I'm going to use is the line tool. I see this is a nose, this is a jaw, and I'm going to put a mouth here. So in fact, okay, that's a straight line. Whoops, I didn't want the straight line, I wanted the curved line. Alright, here we go. Kind of pull that down a little bit. Alright, so let's see, and then put the nose right in here with another curve. And maybe put a little brush for the nostril there. And then for the eye, we could put an eye right here off of this eye line. Then the curved line tool. Now here I could go right over this line and then drag it up for my eye to go up, or drag it down for my eye to go down. Sort of second click that. So you can start to see this is a guy. Chin, mouth, nose, eye. But again, you might see something else there, and that's fine. You can go ahead and make something else. So something like that. Let's see. So what would this be? His hair, I guess? Or a hat that he's wearing? So since he has kind of curves here and some straight lines here, I'm going to actually use my curve line tool, bring some bangs over his head, left click again, left click off, come down here, maybe to here. That looks more like a hat. If I go there, I'm going to come here, slight bend, maybe there. Then take my straight line tool, maybe come down, maybe come down. So that could be some kind of a hat, maybe. Alright. Or I could just come in and give him some lines here for the hair. But again, it's going to be up to you what you want to do with it. Perhaps you make this into a hat. Perhaps you make it into his hair. I'll make it into a hat just for the sake of time. So we come here where the hat might end, maybe here. And I click, and there it is. So he's got a hat, his hair sticking out the back, and his face. So again, there's another version. So we've got this version, which is a completely different thing than this version. But again, these will all tessellate because we took the tessellation shape and made it into something. Now this one, let's see. I don't know, maybe I add an eye. Again, you can decide what you want to do on these two. So maybe here, this looks to me like a bird of some kind. So I'm going to take my eye and I'm going to put the bird's eye right here. Now remember, you can actually move this thing when it's in place. Kind of move it around where you think it might look best. So something like this. Then click off of it. Use the paint tool. And just put yourself a little eyeball in there. For a beak, maybe use the curve tool. Bend it down. Curve tool again will come from this point back up and bend it in around the eye. bring this one down here so it touches. Remember, we need to make sure it touches. Let's hit Control Z. That didn't touch here, so I'm going to start my line here, make sure it touches here, and then I'm going to drag it back out just to kind of make that mouth a little bit bigger. Left click again. Good, so now you can kind of see the bird. And again, I just start by placing an eye where I think it ought to go. Bring this down. Click over here, bring this down. Click over here, maybe bring this down. Click over here, so again, kind of a peak on its head. And now for some wings, maybe I'm going to take a curved line, follow from here to here. Now, if I go this way, kind of look like the wing is attached. And then left click. And you can adjust these if you need to. Alright, so now there's the wing, so I'm going to need some straight lines perhaps. And maybe some curved lines. Ooh, undo that. Let's try that again. And then maybe a curved line down here. Alright, so there we go. And then maybe some tail feathers. And I just think he needs to have some feet. So after I put these tail feathers in, I'm going to give him some feet. And it looks like his belly droops way down. But I'm going to put a couple of feet here. Here's how I'm going to do it. Circle. Big circle. Then I'm going to draw a smaller circle. And I'll actually bring it up. Let's see if I can drag this and move it. Now what I might need to do is zoom in on it. And click on the circle tool. Select it. And drag it up. So there's another toe. And then make another circle. A little bit smaller. Or this about the same size. And then again, click off, select, go and select it, and then bring it over. So there he goes. He's got some toes. And I want to do it this way. Or like this. There we go, some toes. Alright, so that looks pretty good. Now I'm going to zoom back out. We're at 300, go back out to 200. And so we'll finish up this last one. Let's see what we can do with it. And I can use this left click and drag, just kind of move it around. So we've got 3 options so far out of the same exact shape. So let's go ahead and turn this guy into something. This guy kind of, I can already see what I want to do with him. It's just going to be tricky kind of doing it. I'm going to take a line. And then another curved line under here. That'll be under his nose. So this is a big, long, straight, pointy nose. And then maybe my straight line tool. I come down. Maybe this goes here. Click off, then maybe come down. Give him some sort of sunglasses. And then, let's see. I don't know if I like that. Control Z, Control Z, Control Z, Control Z, Control Z. Alright, see, if it doesn't work, you just hit Control Z. Now, one thing I forgot to mention is you need to save your work. So let's go ahead and save this. So I click on Save, and I'm going to save this in my pictures, and I'm just going to call this, and make sure it's a ping so we can see it again next time, or a bitmap, BMP. And we're going to call this Tessellation options. Tessellation options. And I'm going to click on save. And we'll see what we do with this one. I think, let's see, if that's a mouth, it's a nose. Let's see if I take a straight line here, curve line right over it. There we go. And I could take my brush, not my paint bucket, but my brush tool, here it is, and I can put him looking forward. And then if this was his nose, maybe I put a mustache, that's what I could do here. Click from here up to here, put a big mustache. And to here, click off, and then from here down to connect his mustache. That might be a mustache, or it could even look like a mouth. I can put it, I'm going to put his mouth right here. And the way we know it's mouth, I'll put his teeth. So there it is, mustache and a mouth, and I'll put kind of a curved line inside his mustache just to kind of make it look like a mustache. There we go, and then put a nose. Nostril to define his nose, and maybe some hair, or maybe this is a captain's hat, so maybe I put a pentagon shape on the captain's hat. Yeah, there we go. And maybe close off that hat with a curved line here over his eye. Alright, there we go. And then we could put some hair back here. Then we could put some hair back here. Maybe a straight line. Curved line. Nope, that's not a curved line. Let me get a curved line in there. And then another curved line. Good, so we've got hair. Let's bring off this. Oops, Control Z. We'll finish this off. Alright, that looks good. Let's go ahead and click save, just to save this. And that looks good. Kind of a pirate looking guy here. We've got a bird. Up here we've got another guy. And over here we've got a fish. So lots to choose from. I zoom back out so we can see all these different tessellating shapes. And then we're going to pick the one we want to work with. Okay, now that we've completed the drawing and the design of each tessellation, now remember, this is a translation type of tessellation. So the idea is to be able to take these shapes and translate them both across and up and down, which would be horizontally and vertically. Alright, so we're just going to pick one of these. Doesn't matter really which one you pick. Depends on what you want. You want to go with the bird or with the fish. It's really up to you. But we need to select our selection tool and make sure transparent selection is on. so that when we click that again we can see a check mark here. So select our selection tool, and you need to make sure you drag over so you get the entire tessellation. So I'm going to grab that, I'm going to hit Control, hold Control key and hit C, and then I'm going to create a new document because I want to use this to fill the whole entire page. So I'm going to click here and click on New. That will give me a new document, and at this point we can go ahead and close this toolbar at the top. We don't need it for right now. So what I'm going to do is go click here and then click on Minimize the Ribbon. That will give me the entire page. That'll make sure it's nice and big, so when I'm working on it I don't get a little small thing. It makes it a lot easier. Then I'm going to hit Home, Paste, and there it is. And now I can move that around, and what I want to do is lock it so that it touches this edge on the left and it touches the top edge as well. And the reason I do that is because I want this to block off as a shape so that when I paint this area, the paint does not spill over past this tip of the nose and past this tip of the head. Alright, so then I'm going to click off and hit Control V again. Or I can go back and click the paste button. But again, Control V is the keyboard shortcut for this. Now what I want to do is position this perfectly in here. Alright, now the beauty of doing this on the computer is that once I've done 2 of these, I can do this. I can actually take my selection tool and I can select both of them. I can hit Control C to copy and then Control V to paste, and it gives me a second copy so that when I left click and take this away, there it is. Now I've got double the amount. When I've got those positioned where I want them, now yes, you guessed it, I can select all of them, and it real quickly pays dividends because I hit Control C to copy, Control V to paste. It gives me the exact duplicate, and I can simply move those down, and you guessed it, we can do it again, and we can select somewhere over here to select all of them, and then Control C to copy, Control V to paste, so we can quickly fill this entire screen. Control V to paste, and again just simply bring those down to fit. Control V to paste, and there we have it. Now there's a couple things we need to check. First of all, here at the top we've got some gaps, and so we're going to need to fill those gaps with the bottom part of this bird. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select this row. So I'm going to go from here as soon as I can get my cursor to work here. I'm going to select this entire area, making sure I've gone down below the belly of each of these. Hit Control C and Control V, which will paste it right on top, and I can simply move that up and get that positioned. It's going to take this is a little tricky now. You got to be really good with your mouse, but position that. Okay, and then I can click anywhere off of it, so that works. So if I look at this top edge, I can see, yes, that's going to work. I've got everything closed off. Now over here, we're missing the back end of the bird, which has to do with the feathers. So what I'm going to do at this point is take just we don't even need the back half of this bird. So I'm going to take from here, and I'm going to select all the way to the tip of the wing, so that I'm including the wings all the way down. Control C and Control V to paste. That way I can move this right into place. And again, you have to kind of be steady with your mouse. When you get it to a place that you're comfortable, we have now tessellated this entire surface, and we're ready to paint. Now to paint this, I'm going to actually come up here and bring the ribbon back out. Now I'd like you to use alternating colors. Now alternating colors, you can pick a pattern. The simplest pattern would be just a basic 1-2 pattern going across horizontally and up and down vertically. So to do that, what I would do is I would pick a color. Now, I'm going to show you a little bit of how to edit the colors. Alright, so what you can do, you can pick from all these different colors here. Or to edit and make your own colors, simply click on Edit Colors. And then you can make custom colors. And you do that by dragging this little icon wherever you want it, yellows, reds, a range of colors. And you'll notice this bar here, this is what we call a value scale. A value scale basically is going to create the light and shadow of it. Alright, so what I could do is go into my blues. Let's say I pick a darker blue like this, but it's a little too dark. I want it a little bit lighter. I can take this little triangle, I can drag it up, and I can get a range of tints and shades. The shades are the darker values, the tints are the lighter values up here. So that's a nice little tool. It's nice to be able to move that around a little bit. And again, find the colors that you're comfortable with. So let's say I want a little bluebird like this. I click Add to Custom Colors, click on it, hit OK. And you'll notice my color 1 turns to that color. And it's called light turquoise. And this box turns that color. So I can quickly reference that color or come back to it. Now I'm going to pick the Paint Bucket tool. And I'm going to I'll start with this one in the top left corner. And I click on it. Now, you'll notice some of it didn't get hit, which is fine. I can go in and paint that. But very quickly, I can paint the body of the bird. Now, for the beak, I may want a yellow. Maybe for the bottom of the beak, I want this color yellow. So I click on it, and I put the bottom beak here. Maybe I want a little brighter yellow for the top beak, and bright yellow for the fingers or for the nail or the claws. And I can simply go in just like that and click. So there's my first color. Now to alternate, I'm going to go from a blue bird to maybe more of an orange colored bird. So I click on Edit Colors, and I can find an orange that maybe I like, maybe something in here, something like that, and I add that to my custom colors. Oops, I switched it. Something maybe more, a little darker, or maybe even more of a pink. That might be nice, or a purple. Add to custom colors, click OK, and there it is, your second color. Now I can show you another little trick. But let's just color this one in first. We'll keep the same yellows. So that orange for the bottom, that yellow for the top, and yellow for the nails here. It's a little tricky trying to get it in there. Now if you need to, you can always zoom in. Makes it a little easier to paint. Go back to your Paint Bucket tool. Okay. And to zoom back out, you simply come down here and click on minus so that you're out 100%. And I'm going to bring this up so we can see the top. So we're alternating from left to right and from top to bottom. So our pattern is going to be blue, pink, blue, pink. So to go quickly over to here, basically I'm going to take this color and left click on it and do it again. Now I'm going to show you real quick a little trick that'll make this a little quicker for you. If you click on color number 2 and then click your pink color so that you have a blue and a pink, here's what you can do. This will be your right click, this will be your left click. So if I right click now, because I want pink here, every time I right click it's going to give me pink. Every time I left click it's going to give me, oops, Control Z. Every time I left click in an area like this, it will give me blue. So right click and left click. Right click and left click. So if I'm going here, this is going to be blue. I need pink, so I'm going to right click. And this would be blue, so it's going to be left click. Left click. right click. That way you can quickly color this. Again, this is the beauty of being able to use the computer. Now we're going to save this. You can either click here, but for my purposes I want to click Save As. So I'm going to save it as, and I'm going to call it Bird Translation Tessellation. Because it's a bird and it's a translation type of tessellation. Click on Save, and now I can just hit Save as I go. So again, I can left click and just fill this out. Now, here's where you might have a problem. You see what I did? I right-clicked and it hit one of those black lines, which are all connected. So I'm going to hit Control Z, and that will undo it. However, I need to show you something that you may run up against, especially if you're using the color black. So I need to show you this just in case you want to use black in your design, because some of you are going to want to have a black bird or some other color. You want to use black in your design, but there's a trick. If you're going to use black in your design, you have to know this little trick. So let me show you that now before we go too far. Alright, so let's take a look. If I were to take the normal color black, let's just take this for instance. If I took the normal color black and I colored my bird black, or let's just say I wanted to color something on my bird black, so the bottom of his jaw was going to be black. Now, let's say I wanted to change that. Now that I've colored it black, I wanted to change it. You'll notice what happens if I say, oh no, that's not what I want orange, or the orange for the bottom. Watch what happens. All that black has connected to all the other black that eventually was connected to it. So if you followed this, if I hit Control Z, you'll notice that wherever it's black is connected, it actually changed the color, because the computer only recognizes the number of that black, and so anything that's touching that same number, it will turn to the new color. So I'm going to hit Control Z twice to undo that. Now if you do want to color using black, here's what you must do. First of all, you're going to pick a different color. You're going to edit the colors, and you're going to click down here on the black, and you'll notice if you were clicking the regular black, it would give you this value. In the red, green, and blue, it will give you 0, 0, 0. So you can click on that just so that you know that you need some other combination of numbers, so that you're not going to, so the computer will recognize that the black you're using is a little bit different. And if you just bring this up a little bit, even to 888 or 777, one of those numbers, then you add it to your custom colors and click OK. Now, if you do color something black and then want to change it, it's no longer connected, because the computer recognizes that this black is not the same as this original black. Now again, it still looks black, and it is. The only thing is we've changed the variable, the number of the RGB value, so that it doesn't, the computer can tell the difference between what you want colored with the original black, which is the basic outline of this whole design, and what you simply want to color black as a part of your design. So that's how to deal with using black. So if you want to use black in your design, you can certainly do it, but just be aware that the 000 RGB value that you use to draw the framework will have to be changed dry, then I'm just going to finish this thing up. And it takes a very short time to do this. Imagine if we had to color this in by hand. My goodness. Control Z. The yellow. Oops. That's the right click. So I'll right click in here. Get a little brighter yellow. Just color these in yellow. Then we need to do all of the, I'm going to take this and put it on left click color and zoom in because I need to get these toes, and those toes are a little bit hard to get. So click back to my paint bucket tool. And you want the little tip of this paint bucket, if you can see that little, looks like a little pouring spout, that little tip is what you want to touch to the white part, because if you hit it on the black, for some reason it will turn the whole thing that color. And don't forget to save. You can always push this button right up here, and we're going to scroll over by grabbing that bar at the bottom, left click. It's always good to save your work. Control Z. Alright, we're going to bring down. Left. Alright, so here we need to alternate. And so I'm going to take the wing color from here. And it's going to actually be this section right here. So I'm actually going to have to select rectangular selection, and I'm going to select, let's see, I'm going to select here, Control C, Control V, which will give me this, and I can put this right here. Now obviously I have to change those colors back. Control V, so I can change those to the right colors. And then take my paint tool, left, and put that for the right. Paint bucket tool. This has to go back to blue. This has to go back to pink. Do it again real quick way to change those. Along, Control V, puts this one on the clipboard. It looks like I'm gonna need it over here. Put it right there. Good. Control V. Another copy here. Control V. Paint, go back to the paint bucket tool and change those colors back. Alright, and that looks good, so now we can zoom out and just make sure we've done what we needed to do. Minimize this so we can see the whole thing. Yes, and it looks good. So we've completed our, oh, what are you talking about? You missed a couple spots up there. Oh, that's okay. Let's get the zoom tool out. Let's go hit those spots. Check our colors. Make sure we've got the yellow selected. And the paint bucket selected. That's going to be right click, right click, right click. Change those to blue. Right click, right, oops, Control Z. Alright, there we go. Now if we zoom out, we've completed it. Make sure you push on save. And there's a couple little spots here and there need to be colored in. That looks good. Oops, Control Z. That looks good. Alright, so we've completed the bird tessellation, clicked on save. And at this point, you could try another one. You could try one of those other ones.